Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video, and today I am thrilled to be coming at you with a layout created with the Feeling Groovy kit, which is the debut kit from MercyTiara Kits, which is the newest addition to the scrapbooking world. Check it out. The link is on the screen there, and it will also be in the information section below. So this is our kit club. Finally, I've dreamed of this day, and here I am scrapbooking with this kit. So I'm starting off with this photo, which I printed at 4x3, and this is an older photo of my cat. It just showed up, little Miss Chloe. She showed up on my phone. You know how they show you the memories every day or a couple of days or whatever. So that was from back in 2017, and it was such a cute photo, and I'm pretty sure I didn't scrap it. So I wanted to scrap it today. Now, as you can see, this kit has been cut into, I did create another layout, which is not quite finished. So I haven't shared it on my channel or really anywhere yet because I ran into a bit of a trouble with my sewing machine. So I will be working on getting that page ready for you guys to see very soon. But in the meantime, I'm just going to pick out some papers here to work with this page about Chloe. I wanted to cut out one of these cassette tapes, but the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to keep that paper for the flip side. Of course, now I'm wishing that I had hung on to an extra pattern paper kit from the add-ons, but I actually didn't hang on to one for myself. I think there are a few left in the shop, so if they don't sell out, I might grab one for myself, but I'll leave them for you first. So anyhow, I am taking a piece of white cardstock here, and this is super thick white cardstock. It's from the Vicky Bouton, I think they're called mixed media background papers, or no, they're not background papers, because I think she sells those as well that have some mixed media already on them, but this is her pad of mixed media white cardstock. So it's super thick, and it's good for using for mixed media, although I'm going to be using the packaging technique here today, and I often just use that on regular white cardstock, and it works fine as long as you don't go too overboard with the water content of the products that you're working on. You could do today's technique on regular paper as well, regular cardstock. So as you can see, I am just cutting out, and by cutting, I mean tearing with my ruler, cutting out a couple of these pieces of paper that I selected from the kit, and I'm just making them be slightly bigger than the photo and in just slightly different proportions. So I made one pretty much the same proportions as the photo, and then I made another one that was basically shorter and wider. And now I made a little strip out of the back side of that paper. And now this pink and yellow, and there's bits of blue in it, that floral, and also the stripy one and the daisy wood grain paper are all from the Jen Hadfield Flower Child collection. And then the darker blue floral and the navy, they're not navy, but the hunter green that I used for matting the photo is from Maggie Holmes Woodland Grove, and all of those papers came in the kit. In fact, I believe every single thing from this layout came from the kit except for the mixed media and obviously that white cardstock background. Now, starting with kit number 3, you will have the option to have a cardstock add-on. I know that a lot of us have cardstock already in our stash, so I didn't want to include cardstock in the kits just in case, you know, there's no point in paying for something that you're not going to use. But I also really appreciate that lots of people like to use cardstock as their background, so that'll be an option starting with kit number 3. So as you can see, I'm just putting these together in a way in which it basically doesn't look too repetitive. So I'm just kind of smushing them together, and then I'm gluing them in place. And here I'm just trying to decide where to put that strip. Basically, the strip is going to anchor these layers onto the page. And I'm using my grid mat here to line it up so that it's pretty straight. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to be sort of straight-ish. And I really like how you can see little slivers of these beautiful, beautiful papers. This is an example of less is more. So these papers say a lot in their little tiny voices on this page. So now we have basically the main structure of this page already done. And now it's just about getting something interesting on that white background and figuring out how I'm going to add some embellishments into my layers here. So you'll see me pull down a sketch that I'm not using today, and on that sketch are a whole bunch of dots with the colors from this kit in it. And that is something that you will find on our Facebook group, MercyTiara Kits Facebook group, if you're interested in that. I find that having those little swatches helps me to choose colors. However, in this case, I'm actually not even using it, even though I did circle some of those colors as potentials. I remembered that I actually don't have to go over to my mists to color match. I have these swatches right here. These swatches don't include all of my mist colors, but it's a lot of them. I got a whole bunch all at once that were handed down to me. So all of my new ones are not included in here, but as you can see, I've got tons of colors to choose from. So I just picked out a yellow. The yellow that I picked was a very well loved copy of Sunshine from Mr. Huey's. And then the blue that I selected, well, that I was gone for so long looking for, is Powder Blue. Now I keep my mists in these nail polish display units. I have a video about it, so you can check out my channel. I'll insert a card in the top corner here if you want to see that. But these stadium seating type of trays for mists fit beautifully in the calyx unit, as you can see there. So I was just over there on the other side of my scrap room getting that when I was gone for a few minutes. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking the mist, I'm adding it to some packaging, and I added a little bit of water, both to dilute the color, but also to make it more liquidy so it moves around a little bit more on the packaging and on the paper. And as you can see, I also found a little roller that somebody gave me recently. And so I wanted to just play around with that. And I made sure that when I was playing around with it, that I just did it in the section that I knew would be covered, just in case I didn't like it. I've decided to not go for that, but it was handy to get to see how that little rubber roller stamp works on mist, because I was wondering if it would work on mist, and it does. So you'll see that come out maybe in my next project. That clear block that I have there, that acrylic block for stamping, I just took that out because I thought I might need a palette for something, but it turns out I didn't need it. So here I am just adding that powder blue mist to a second piece of packaging, and I'm focusing my first smoosh. If you call this the paper, some people call it the packaging technique, and some people call it paper smooshing or ink smooshing. I just always try to smoosh my first smoosh right under where the photo is going to be, so that if I don't like how it looks, I have another try at it in the spot where it is going to show. So I just wanted this to show in basically 3 different places. I want it to look like it was kind of creeping out from behind my layer of photos and pattern papers. And I am using my heat tool here just to speed up the drying process a little bit. And there's must be a pretty high water content in these Mr. Huey's mists because they take a very long time to dry. But I like how they sit on the surface of this mixed media paper, which means that the little droplets are nice, perfect circles. Sometimes when you have a lighter weight paper, the mist absorbs into the paper and it gets more of a feathered look around the outside edges. So this is one of the benefits of working with proper mixed media paper, is that it does tend to hold the little circular, the perfect circles for the droplets. And another way that you could make sure that you got those perfect circles would be to just put a really thin layer of gesso over top of your white cardstock if you were using a thinner cardstock. Now here's one of those times when I'm glad that I check things under where the photos are going to go, because when I splattered that, it was really looking more orange than yellow. Rather than go try to find a mist that's going to splatter yellow, I just decided it doesn't need yellow splatters. I'm just going to stick with the blue. And I do like how the blue splatters are a darker blue than the blue ink, because that just kind of adds another little dimension to my background. I'm going to use a half of one of these frames. These are the chipboard frames that came in the main kit. They're from Pink Fresh Studio from the Spring Vibes collection. And I really love them. So many come on that sheet, like a lot of pieces. What is it, 30? Yeah, it's 30 pieces in that. And for the most part, I cut those in half to use them. So that means 60 uses of those. For me, anyways. I might use some of them whole, but I typically tend to cut them in half. So lots and lots of uses there. Now, I'm just demonstrating here for my patrons who watch these videos in real time over on my Patreon channel or my Patreon feed. I'm just demonstrating how, if you're not sure if your marker will work on a slick surface, or if you're not sure if your sticker is a slick surface or not, you can always try your marker on the little margins of your sticker sheet just to see if it's going to smudge or not. I tend to use a Sharpie pen for all of my journaling, and that is not a slick surface writer. And I use a Sharpie marker for slick surfaces because that is a slick surface writer. Although you're going to see me use a third pen later on when I do my journaling. So I just added a sticker from the Jen Hadfield Flower Child collection that came in the, I think that came in the embellishment kit, that sticker set right there that I have pulled out. And I layered it with a Vicky Bouton chipboard sticker from the embellishment add-on that says Paradise Found, which I thought kind of applied. She found her little spot in the cat tree that she loves and ever since then has monopolized. I'm just going to create a little cluster here of layered embellishments to put in the bottom left-hand corner of this, because I have a little cluster between the heart sticker from Jen Hadfield and the Paradise Found chipboard, and then the frame behind it all, that's a little cluster. So I'm going to add a similar cluster over here on the other side. It's going to sit a little bit lower on the layers than the other cluster. And so I'm just having a look. I knew that there were some flowers, and I thought I might want some flowers behind that little piece of, it's like a chipboard tab. And I'm going to position it so that it's pointing at the phrase pet friends. And I didn't really like this. I went through all the trouble of finding these floral die cuts, but then once I had them, I didn't like how it was layering with the paper layers. But then I thought, if I cut off this little white trim all the way around it, and I don't even have to cut it off for the whole piece because some of it's going to be tucked behind, I really like how that looks quite a bit better. So I went ahead and did that, and then I'm going to add some outlining because, as you saw, I outlined all of those pattern papers. I think I was talking about something else as I outlined them in the process video, but basically I love to outline my pattern papers because it tends to bring together or pull together patterns that might not look like they would otherwise go together. So it's a really nice way to have a pulled together cohesive look, even when you're scrapbooking with different patterns and shading and whatnot. So I added that flare badge. That's a flare badge that comes in the main kit and it's exclusive to the kit. And I'm just talking about that with my patrons and how much fun we had making those buttons for you all. It was really fun. And so now these dots are still not quite dry. They're taking a very, very long time. And I think if I had just waited longer, they probably would have eventually dried. But what I'm doing here is I'm just dabbing them with my fingertips to remove any excess liquid from them. And I find that using my fingertips to do this helps them to keep their circular shape. Is sometimes if you dab it with a paper towel, it will disturb the shape of those perfect little circles and make them into something that isn't a perfect little circle, which is fine. But in this case, I really wanted them to be little circles. So I used my fingers. Now I'm just attaching my layers to the background and just mentioning how helpful it is to create your layers separate, and then you can kind of keep on checking to see if your mixed media background is the shape and in the areas that you need it to be. Now, I was wishing that a little bit more mixed media was showing on that left-hand side of my layers. So what I did was I just pulled out of the garbage that sheet of packaging that had the yellow mist already on it, and I just used the mist that was already left on the packaging, added a tiny bit of water to make it more watery, and I added more yellow in those two little places. Now you can see that there's a tiny bit of blue already there between those two bits of yellow, but it's very hard to see. It's not very bright or obvious blue. So I pulled out the blue paper, again, the blue packaging paper, and I keep calling it paper, but it's really plastic. And I just, with my paintbrush, added a little bit more of the blue just to fill in between the two bits of yellow. So it looked like one clump of mixed media sticking out there, because otherwise, before I added the blue, it kind of looked like two clumps of yellow instead of just one clump of mixed media in two different colors, which is what I wanted. Now, every time I work with mixed media, I'm always paranoid that I'm going to have a splotch of something on my hand or my wrist or somewhere and not realize it and end up ruining everything. So I am a little bit particular about cleaning up after myself when I do mixed media. Lessons learned through a long career of scrapbooking. So I'm just using some foam double-sided tape here. This is what's called dimensional adhesive from Stampin' Up. It's my favorite dimensional adhesive. It's no better than any others. I just really like the shape of it, and I like that it's the thinner size. There was a time when Stampin' Up was one of the few companies that sold the thinner size of dimensional adhesive, but now I think almost all, or certainly a lot of different companies sell that same thickness of foam tape. So I like it. I'd rather have the thinner kind and then use doubles of it if I wanted the more dimension. So I'm going to call this Chloe Love, kind of like Baby Love, but Chloe Love. I had the song Baby Love going in my head the whole time I was scrapping this, so I thought Chloe Love is a pretty good title. And I'm just going to layer it with that giant love word. I have been, ever since I saw these chipboard, it's the mixed chipboard set that comes, it's from Vicky Booten from the Where to Next collection. Ever since I saw it, I needed it for my kits, and I included it in the embellishment add-on. So if you're one of the lucky people who grabbed the embellishment add-on before it sold out, you have these in your stash, or in your kit. So I am so looking forward to using these ginormous words on my pages this month. I can't wait to use them all up. My goal is to use all the words. So one down. And I think I have 4 to go. Now here's an old school scrapping technique. I am going to be using these strips of washi tape that came in the embellishment add-on. I'm going to be using them to hold my journaling. I'm using my T-square here, my small 12-inch T-square, to just make sure that my tape was straight. But this was one of these times when it was straight, it actually didn't look quite right. So I actually did move it around a little bit so that it was more aligned with that pattern paper than it was with the overall layout, and that's okay. Now, this washi tape comes in the embellishment kit, but you might not have received this exact set of washi tape because it varied. So if you didn't get this one, you would have received, preferably, hopefully, I tried to split them up so that you got one thick and one thin, or one specialty and one smaller one. So I hope that you got washi tape that you liked. I tried to make it even and fair. So as you see, I just added those strips, did my journaling, and now I can just tear them so that they are the shapes and lengths that I needed them to be. And my journaling says Chloe back in 2017, just as spunky as she is today. And I did underline that. I used to journal on thin washi tape all the time back in around the 2014 time range. Now I do want to put at least one more black element, and ideally I'd like two more so that I've got a visual triangle going on with the black elements. And so I'm playing around here with arrows. I would love to have an arrow that kind of goes from the photo of Chloe to the journaling, or from the journaling to Chloe, but none of the arrows are the right shape and size and length for doing that, so it's not quite working the way that I want it to work. I've decided to go with a star down in the bottom left-hand corner. So now I'm just left with figuring out, well, what hit of black am I going to put up in this top corner that's not going to throw off the balance, because I really want it to be a fairly small black element up there, because there's not really much else going on up there. So I don't necessarily want to draw your attention there too much. But I do feel like it needs some more black just to balance it off. So I noticed that the Vicky Bouton Where To Next chipboard stickers that come in the embellishment kit, I noticed that they had these small black cardstock stars that have a gold foil highlight on them. So I decided to use those in these 3 different spots. It adds a little bit of black up to that top left-hand corner, but it doesn't really pull your focus or attention away from what ends up being 2 main clusters, one of which is the title with a couple of things below it, and the other is this little cluster of embellishments on the bottom left-hand corner of my clusters, of my layers. And now just to balance it off, because the word love comes very, very close to the edge there of the right-hand side of my page. And then there's all of this white space over on the left-hand side, and nothing comes close to the edge. So I just wanted to balance that off a little bit. This is not really needed. I think it looked fine without this, but it just adds a little bit of extra interest down here in the very bottom left-hand corner. And I like how that balances it off. If you don't like how that looks, then obviously you do you and make it a different way. But I just thought that this balanced it nicely. And I like to have a little bit of extra detail somewhere unexpected on the page. So that's what I went with. I'm just keeping these Vicky Bouton chipboard pieces in a little 6x12 inch bag. And as you notice, as I go through here and use different pieces, I'm trying to mark them off of the manufacturer's little sheets so that I don't go looking for them for another layout and discover that I haven't used them. Now in the photos, there's going to be a little black blob on this star, and that's because the glue was still wet when I took the photos. It's dry now as I'm marinating this, and that little blob is gone. So great big thank you to my Patreon supporters. These folks really do help make this channel happen, so thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of them who were featured on a couple screens back there. My patrons get early access to most of my process videos, and they also get real-time unedited versions of my videos where I kind of chat and explain what I'm doing in even more detail than I do in these process videos. And if you are interested in grabbing a MercyTiara kit, this month's kit is the Feeling Groovy kit, which was featured in this video. Check out MercyTiaraKits.com to purchase this kit. Sign up for our newsletter so that you get announcements when we drop new kits. And also make sure that you join our Facebook group, not the one listed there, although feel free to join that one as well. But I'm talking about the MercyTiara Kits Facebook group, which will have some challenges going on throughout the month if you're scrapping with these kits. So in the meantime, take care and have a really great scrappy week.